Hey, this is Jimmy Mitchell. We're back from another episode of Libertarian Uncensored podcast, and let's get right into it. First, we have Oregon senators face re-election ban after prolonged boycott from the New York Times, posted by Donald Key, and my thoughts on that are, I don't think anyone should be banned from re-election for any reason, I would say. If the people want them, they should be able to have them. You know, I guess I personally like stuff like term limits on to some extent, but I do think, you know, you could already make an argument that term limits do violate democracy because people should be able to have whoever they want, even if they have served for infinite terms. So that's something to remember as well. But yeah, so I definitely wouldn't think to ban everyone from re-election for any reason beyond term limits. So that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Community Notes has finally started disputing the lies of the current administration accounts from Twitter.com. That's by Vertice, and that's a link to a tweet by Joe Biden. And what does Joe Biden say? He said, I'm proud of the progress we have made. We reduced the deficit in our first 2 years by $1.7 trillion. That includes more revenue by asking the wealthy and large corporations to begin to pay their fair share and cutting subsidies to big oil and big pharma. And then it got community noted as noted. And he said the $1.7 trillion reduction was caused by previously planned expiration of COVID spending. Biden's actions raised rather than lowered the deficit. I think that's why I really like Community Notes. They always manage to get stuff that goes against the narrative, and I think that's really important. You know, that's why I think stuff like Community Notes is really, really good. Yeah. Then we have Bennett Welch bill would create digital platform commission for rulemaking authority from inside cybersecurity, and I posted that. I said definitely something the government will use to regulate the internet more. Soon, I think, we'll have, you might get arrested if you post wrong thing or something like that. So that's gonna be important to see how that plays out. Let's see, and then we have multiple outlets hit Musk for censorship despite their own push to censor ideas they disagree with by Vajospel, and that's from am.org, the Accuracy Media, yeah. And I personally would agree with that. The thing is, everyone wants censorship, but they don't want, everyone wants censorship for, a lot of people want censorship for for stuff they disagree with. But, they don't want to, they don't want to say, I don't want to, be seen as pushing for, they just want to, be content moderation. I think to some extent we should have censorship, I would say, like, for stuff like child pornography and, snuff films, but I definitely don't think we should justify it at all when it comes to speech, and I think that's something we should probably think, yeah, so, everyone, yeah, so that's my thoughts on the issue, everyone will want censorship to some extent, but, we should definitely play it as free speech absolute as possible, as long as the NAP isn't being violated. That's my thoughts on the issue. Then we have, can the Republicans get rid of Trump? And that's by, Dina B. Free. And, I personally think they probably can't. What did I write? My thoughts on the issue were, I'll see if I can find them. Right, yeah, there. I don't think so. Either Trump retires from politics or dies, which might be relatively soon since he turns 77 next month. And I do think we will probably survive another Trump term in office, but as the past years have shown, him not being president is probably not going to shut him and his movement up. Subject to civil war, I still find it relatively unlikely the average American is too comfortable currently and can just be passive-aggressive on social media, which is a lot less deadly. I think another world war is more likely depending on how the proxy war in Ukraine goes. So my thoughts on, I would say that's probably true. I think, the president's kind of like a figurehead leader anyway, so I don't really think it really matters too much whether if Trump or Biden gets reelected again, or if Biden gets elected again, or if DeSantis gets elected. I don't really think it matters too much. The deep state will continue, the outdated agencies, the unelected bureaucrats, and the military-industrial complex will continue to run the country regardless, and I think that's something that would be important to remember. Then we have ESG's proof that getting rid of direct corporate political donations won't sever the connection between financial interest and government power, and that's a tweet from Ludwig Nevermises on Twitter, and I said, ESG is basically giving incentives for corporations to pander to left-leaning causes as much as possible. It's why so many changed their logos to rainbows in June. And, the thing is, it's kind of essentially bribery, and, I don't think we should justify stuff like bribery, but I guess if you want to, you can make an argument it's not an app violation, so that's important to remember as well. Then we have, want to hold your newborn, pay up. Capitalism holding basic human behavior hostage for value redistribution to third-party shareholders by Chi-Town 20. And that's a tweet from Ben Kling. I know it's cliche to say so, but this hospital charging parents $39.95 to hold their newborn baby is a really tight microcosm of capitalism. Skin after C-Sec, yeah, so, yeah, I would agree with that, The thing is, it's, what do people value, they'll find a way to charge you for. I'm personally not the biggest fan of capitalism. I do think it's probably better than some other systems, but I do think, it does lead to hierarchies and what resources people are willing to spend on what, and, some people might not have those resources, and that's important to remember. That's why I don't think people should be forced to practice capitalism if they don't want to, but, I do think, the thing is, you should be able to get resources on your own, too, so, I think, capitalism is a resource as a state where the resources are all, controlled by, a system of currency, and that's important to remember. I personally am not too big on the whole currency thing. I think we just gotta go back to just let the resources stand on their own, so that's something that's important to remember as well. Then we have 2024 Republican debates predicted by DeSantis supporter from Imgur.com and won by your state officer. And this is from a Reddit link to a Reddit comment by Super Duper M1. And Nightmare Scenario, DeSantis spends an hour talking about actual policy. Perhaps briefly mentions that Trump is fighting for his life in multiple state courts. Mild applause. Trump, yeah, well, he eats pudding without a spoon, and Mickey Mouse peed on him. Roaring applause. Yeah, that's pretty much U.S. politics for you. And surveys show Trump won the debate in a landslide. That's Trump for you. People love how he breaks the rules and just says whatever he can to get the social media reactions, and I think that's important to note. Yeah, it's like when he attacked Rand Paul for, I don't attack Rand Paul for his looks. There's a lot to go on there. I like Rand Paul. That's one of my favorite quotes by him. That's Trump for you. He basically makes politics like a 6-year-old in the playground, and that's. That's what I like to say. People say, oh, we mature so much after 6, but, do they really? I think Donald Trump's and his popularity is a good case that, no, we don't. And, yeah. Let's see. Ironic coming from an ex-prime minister that just in office for a month. It's by Chi-Town 20, and that's a link to a Liz Truss in Taiwan. We need to establish an economic NATO against China. And that's a tweet from, looks like they cut off who the tweet was from. So, yeah, I personally don't really care for NATO, and I think an economic NATO will be worse. I think, China and Russia are having this economic group, and I think that might be something that's going to be problematic for the U.S. in the future. But, at this point, I really don't care too much because the U.S. and the U.K. and all the NATO countries, that's all grift as well, and that's important to remember. So that's my thoughts on that issue. We need to stop all this endless grifting, but that's kind of what humanity is. It's just endless grifting. Everyone needs to find a way to survive, and that's important to remember. And we have new Senate bill would create federal agency to police Americans for misinformation and hate speech, introduced by Democratic Senator Michael Bennet, and it's from TrendingPoliticalNews.com by Vertice. And I talked about that earlier with the Bennett-Welch bill. And yeah, I think this Digital Platform Commission, I think that's going to be, soon it's going to be like the Ministry of Truth. They've definitely been trying to pass the Ministry of Truth. They also had the Disinformation Governance Board, I think a year or two ago, and that's something to remember. They care deeply about what you think, and soon you won't be able to dissent. It'll be like 1984, and that's why I think soon you'll just see people get arrested for social media posts, like that one guy who posted the trans flags but arranged in the shape of a swastika, and They'll get you for stuff like that, and that's important to remember, especially when maybe they even won't get you. They'll just say, "Oh, you can't use your social, you can't start your car, you can't access your social credit anymore." That's what I think is going to happen, and I think that's something that we could see relatively soon. What is the purpose of reparations, and what would they still be necessary in a socialist country? As a link to a post from the Socialism 101 subreddit, and it's by Chi-Town, of course. And, yeah, so I personally, I do see an argument for reparations, but, I definitely think everyone's been wrong at some point, and that's important to remember. So that's why I think, we could justify reparations for everyone to that extent. So at some point, I think we need to say, we've all been wronged, and we just need to continue into the future. We'll probably be wronged again, and hopefully we'll all survive, and things will go on without too much destruction, I would say. And we have Oregon Senate walkout continues. 6 more Republicans banned from re-election for not doing their jobs by Statesman Journal, from statesmanjournal.com by Whitling Nan. And, I personally think if the elected representatives want to walk out, they should be able to do so. I do think they should still be able to be re-elected if they want to, because I definitely think, we shouldn't be forcing anyone who doesn't want to be elected to be elected. As I talked about that earlier, if they ever post in this subject. So, I do think, I do think you should have sizable conditions like term limits, but, you could argue that goes against that as with the notion as well, and I think that is important to remember, and we'll see how this all plays out. Border Patrol denied hospital care to 8-year-old girl who died days later, mother says from NBCDFW.com by her umph. Yeah, I definitely think the border is always kind of chaotic, and especially the U.S.-Mexico one. And that is something that I don't think we should be justifying now. So we'll see how that plays out. Russia puts ICC prosecutor Khan on wanted list. Russian authorities have put International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan on a wanted list after the Hague-based court issued an arrest warrant for President Vladimir Putin in March. From Yahoo.com by Vajospel. I personally think the government should be able to put whoever wants on one list, but I don't think that should be. I definitely would agree that Russia's acting in its own interest here, but I definitely think if the Hague court accused any of the presidents of war crimes and tried to arrest them for it, I think you'd see the same thing in the U.S. So, it's that countries are going to act in their own interest. This really isn't too surprising. Democrats are fighting for school choice again, from RealClearEducation.com by Ruin My Circle Jerk. And of course, that's downvoted. Yeah, I definitely think some Democrats, some Democrats are good on school choice, but a lot of them aren't, and they think it's fascist dog whistle, but what haven't they argued is a fascist dog whistle at this point? I have another article about that coming up, about how there's one article I found on Medium. I found it from the Cajun Libertarian's Twitter. It was like, oh, waking up early is white supremacy. So what haven't they argued is white supremacy fascism at this point, I would say. If they haven't argued something is white supremacy fascism, I'd be really surprised. So that's something to remember as well. Then we have media's humiliating, but it's just fawning exposed from Breaking Points. And I posted that. It's a YouTube link to how Wired really covered for Buttigieg, and saying, oh, he's this intellectual fellow who's very, very smart, and, yeah, so that's important to remember how the media always tries to cover for those in the regime, and, yeah, so that's important to how they try and always say, yeah, especially if how disastrous his tenure has been, and that is important to remember. And then they always try and cover for him since he's got the right letter next to his name, and he's gay, so that's another reason why. Then we have, in this small Illinois town, beware the book police, from thefire.org by Skull Whisperer. And that's how they tried to come for the book publisher who say Usu, they tried to come for the teacher who said, oh, we need to have This Book is Gay on the list of the approved reading. And I said the book did have links to sex apps, naked drawings of people, and included definitions of words like remming. See the community note on Twitter on NBC News' tweet. With that said, it's important not to justify censorship for any reason as long as the NAP is not being violated. I guess, you could make the argument that the NAP is being violated in this situation, but, that's important to, remember, some people might consider this grooming, and they consider grooming to be a NAP violation, so that's something to remember as well. So, I guess I think you do have a strong argument for both sides here, depending on what your definition of the NAP violation is. And, yeah. Then we have RFK and his team are not interested in working with Marianne Williamson to set up Democrat debates that's the crossovers from the Breaking Point subreddit, and I posted that. And I said, I like RFK Jr., and he did just have my favorite Democrat, Dennis Kucinich, to his campaign team, but stuff like this, his possible Epstein ties, and him trying to ride on his family's legacy are why I prefer Williamson currently, so that's something that I think as well, and, yeah, so, we'll see how, that goes, and, yeah, so, I definitely would support Williamson over him, but I think he's good as well, so I definitely just don't want Joe Biden again. We'll probably get him again and Trump again because fuck you. That's why. And then we have Christian compassion has always been about status. Trumpism has always been about their perceived loss of status. That's a Reddit post. That's a link to a tweet screenshot of from the white people Twitter subreddit, and it says from Chi-Town, and yeah. So I recognize from growing up in church, a conservation party is primarily about aesthetics. Poor people have to look poor and perform gratitude at all times, because helping them is really about feeling like a good person. That's kind of what social media is all about, I would say, too. Everyone wants to wants to virtue signal all the time, and that's why you see, all the, stuff like them endlessly circle jerking whatever the current narrative is. And, yeah, so then we have, Henry Kissinger explains how to start World War III, and that's a screenshot of an article from The Economist. Henry Kissinger explains how to avoid World War III. Of course, Henry Kissinger, we talked about him recently on the podcast, how, he was, really shit, but, the U.S. government was kind of shit for him, but, then again, he's just gonna, try and make it out worse, I would say, and that's something that's important to remember. Anyone who is ever involved in government has been declared an expert by the government is probably just going to make things worse, so don't listen to them, I would say. And then we have, has school choice turned the corner by Ruin My Circle's work, and that's from Cato.org, and, so, that's down below, of course, because school choices is fascism, obviously, according to the subreddit, so that's important to remember as well, and, yeah, we'll see how that turns out. And so then we all used the magic money tree on the coronation, silly peasants, and that's the next post by Chi-Town. And that's a tweet from John Rentoul, and he said, I see the Twitter consensus is that the magic money tree should pay to upgrade our sewage system. And, yeah, so I guess, that's kind of life under the Federal Reserve, if they're just printing money, and, we don't have money tied to anything, so I agree with that post. I usually don't agree with that user very much, but, I definitely would agree with the magic money tree and all that. So then we have conservatives outraged after John Fetterman wears shorts from Newsweek.com, and that's by Donald K. I personally think, you should be able to wear whatever you want. That's the libertarian way. I think, if you don't want to wear any clothes, you shouldn't be forced to wear clothes, But, everyone wants to for you to conform to their standards, and that's important to remember as well. And, we'll see how all this plays out. Yeah, so my thing is, a lot of people on the left want to force you to wear a mask, so I think they are not, completely blameless here either. Then we have Online Politics is Annoying, a video from J.G. McCall, and I posted that. And I said the 3 reasons he gave, were pretty good. About how they have all the obscure ideologies that don't really mean anything than the non-Americans discussing U.S. politics, and then what's the other one? I forget the other one off the top of my head, but my biggest group of online politics out there are mostly hype above all else. Not coincidence that online politics tends to be more exciting and expensive than real-life politics. People care more about throwing buzzwords around than developing a budget, for example. And, yeah. Then we have Tim Pool contemplates his audience putting an illegal end to the problem of LGBT people while looking for his ability, since some in here think cool is cool. That's a tweet from Pim Tool News, and it's by Slayer 911. I think, I don't think we should justify an illegal end to anything, but, a lot of people do hint at violence a lot, and especially on all sides of the political spectrum, so I don't think this is really anything to write home about. Then we have Why Waking Up Early is Rooted in White Supremacy by Meat from Medium.com, and I posted that. I found that on the Cajun Libertarian Twitter, as I noted earlier, and I really hope that's an AI-written article, but the thing is, this way, they've accused everything of being white supremacy at this point, so now that word's pretty much meaningless, same fascism, Nazi, Hitler, all that. Then we have sources of the LGBT hate crime in the states, most likely increase hate crimes with soft on crime policies, then tries to take away personal freedoms to solve the rise in hate crimes, and that's from YouTube.com, and that's by the Shittiest Disciple. It's their own video, I think. And yeah, so that's my thoughts on the issue are, yeah, so I guess, the state can make whatever it wants to crime, and that's important to remember. Yeah, so whatever you want to cry hate crime. I personally don't care for the framing of things as hate crimes, but we'll see how that goes, and how what they label as hate crimes and what they go after. Then we have Florida Department of Education rejects social studies textbooks over Holocaust material from WPTV.com. And yeah, so I guess they can reject whatever they want for whatever reason they want, and that's the thing the state can. Yeah, so I don't know how, maybe it was the material was too graphic. That's important to remember as well, and we'll see how all this plays out. And yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, Biden must consider all the walls, not just the debt ceiling, as state approaches, by Patan 13, from TalkingPointsMemo.com. So I guess, yeah, so that's important. We'll see how that goes. A different way of looking at how states have rushed to the right from Ghost Archive. That's a WAPO article from another one by Patan 13. I guess, whatever they say is rushed to the right, I don't really care much anymore, We always have the left-right spectrum and all that, and yeah, so, yeah. Then we have, are we back again to Libertarian being hijacked by Muad Dib, and that's something, yeah, Libertarian is, pretty much, they always have stuff they consider to be libertarian. I guess you have the Freedom Association argument, but I personally am more on the side of anti-censorship thing, and you have stuff like, our social libertarian censorship, what we were talking about currently, where it's all pretty much neo-Marxism, so that has drawbacks as well. So the thing is, everyone has, their own spin on words like libertarian. I think they should all be able to use whatever they want. If they want to say something libertarian, socialist, libertarian, communist, libertarian, fascist, they should be able to do so, but, people will have their own reactions to those words, and that's important to remember as well. And we have New York homeless men say they were offered money to pose as military veterans and falsely claim they were pushed out of a hotel to make room for migrants from CNN.com, and that's by Chi-Town. And I said, we live in an age of false flags, so that's always important to remember. And then we have Japanese police make first ever YouTuber arrest for uploading video game gameplay videos. That's from JapanToday.com, and surprised they haven't ever arrested anyone for uploading CP or snuff films, so I guess those will be taken down quickly. So yeah, that's the thing, they can arrest you for posting whatever they want on social media, and they have force on their side, so that's always what you should remember. They have the force to make, and they have the monopoly on force too, so that's really what's bad about them. They can arrest you for whatever they want, and yeah. Then we have Big Brother is using advanced camera tech and AI to target the poor, from petapixel.com. That's by Harumph. And, yeah, I guess, the thing is, that's, you're always being surveyed, and that's important to remember. The NSA revelations were 10 years ago, how they were surveying pretty much every average Americans. It's probably only gotten much worse since then. Mexican prosecutors dropped case against woman who killed rapists in self-defense from NBCDFW.com by Harumph. I said, that's good. Yeah, they tried to push that for a while, so that's good they dropped that. Then we have Montana is putting an end to imaginary sexes. Montana could sign law defining sex, raising transgender right concerns from Reuters.com, and that's by Vajaspol. And I personally don't think we should have a state defining any words at this point. They always have managed to enforce those definitions even on people who disagree with them. But, I do think we do need to enforce some definitions like murder, and when the NAP is being clearly violated, so that's important to remember as well. Then we have school choice's undeniable momentum, and that's by Ruin My Circle Jerk, and it's never a school choice piece. So that's good that it's good momentum right now, but, a lot of people are against it as well, and that's important to remember. So I think we're going to wrap it up there, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.